Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for gathering today. We're here to discuss something real, something heavy, an experience that's far too common but often too painful to address directly. The topic at hand is about recognizing when a man uses you, when he takes more than he gives, when his actions don't match his words, and when you begin to question your worth. It's an experience that many of us can relate to, but it's often hard to articulate. So let's break it down. We'll explore what it feels like, how to recognize it, and what it ultimately means for your life. Let's take a journey together through the complexities of relationships, power, and self-worth. The first step in recognizing when a man uses you is to understand the subtle signs. It's easy to get caught up in the surface level aspects of a relationship, the chemistry, the attention, the promises. But what happens when those things start to feel empty? At first, it's hard to pinpoint. Maybe he's charming, saying all the right things, yet something about the relationship doesn't feel reciprocal. It doesn't feel like love to yourself and the world. See, right there, you're on a date. You give and give and give, but it never seems to be enough for him. There's a difference between a relationship built on mutual respect and one where one person is simply taking what they can. You start to notice little things. Perhaps he doesn't make the effort to communicate as much as you do. Maybe he only reaches out when it's convenient for him or when he needs something from you. These little things become the foundation of a much bigger issue, the one where you're giving so much and he's only taking. Over time, the signs become more apparent. The key here is recognizing that relationships are meant to be reciprocal. If you're the one putting in all the effort, emotional energy, and time, it's time to assess whether the relationship is built on mutual respect or if it's just one-sided. The subtle signs may seem small, but they're the breadcrumbs that lead to a larger realization. You might dismiss these feelings, thinking that maybe you're just overthinking or being too sensitive. It's easy to second-guess your instincts, but trust me, your instincts are there for a reason. They're telling you something important. When you start noticing that the relationship feels like a street, pay attention. Don't let yourself be convinced otherwise. Your value is not determined by how much you give, but by the love and respect you receive in return. As time passes, the subtle signs can evolve into a pattern, and it's then when it becomes harder to ignore. He might make empty promises about the future but never follow through. He might ask for your support when he's going through tough times, but vanish when you need someone by your side. These patterns can erode your self-esteem without you even realizing it. That's why it's so important to stay aware and trust your gut. The subtle signs may seem harmless at first, but they're often the first clues that something isn't right. Ultimately, you are worthy of a relationship where both parties are invested, where both sides are willing to sacrifice and compromise. If all the emotional labor is falling on your shoulders, it's time to step back and reassess. Don't wait until you're burned out. Recognizing these subtle signs early on is one of the most important steps you can take for your emotional well-being. A man who uses you is often a master of empty promises. First, these promises might seem sweet and sincere. He tells you everything you want to hear, how much he cares, how much he's committed, how you mean the world to him. But when the time comes to act, those promises fade away. They become just words. Empty promises are a tool of manipulation. They are used to keep you hopeful, to make you believe that change is coming, that things will get better, but they never do. He might promise that he'll make more time for you, that he'll be more emotionally available, or that he'll do the things that you've asked for. But once the promise is made, he disappears into his own world, leaving you hanging. The frustrating part is that you believe in these promises. You want to believe that he's being sincere. After all, who wouldn't want a partner who says they care? But the truth is, actions speak louder than words. If his actions don't match his promises, then those promises are nothing more than a tool to keep you around while he continues to take from you. It's important to recognize that love isn't about empty words. It's about consistent actions that show respect and care. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that someone will change, especially when they've made so many promises. You start to convince yourself that things will improve, that he really does love you, and that his words are meaningful. But here's the truth: if you really cared, he would show it. Love isn't just about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk. If the promises remain unfulfilled, it's time to take a hard look at the reality of the situation. Over time, these empty promises can lead to feelings of betrayal and disappointment. You find yourself giving more and more, hoping that this time he will come through, but he never does. You begin to wonder what's wrong with you. Why doesn't he value you enough to keep his promises? Why is it so easy for him to say things he doesn't mean? These are all signs of a toxic dynamic, one where he is taking advantage of your love and your willingness to believe in him. It's a painful realization, but it's important to recognize that you are worth more than empty promises. You deserve someone who acts on their words, someone who demonstrates their love and respect through their actions. It's time to stop waiting for the promises to materialize. Stop holding on to the hope that things will change if only you're patient enough. You deserve consistency, not uncertainty. B. When a man uses you with empty promises, he is undermining your sense of worth. He's telling you that your love and your time don't matter enough to be backed by meaningful actions. It's a cruel form of manipulation, one that keeps you hooked on the idea of what could be, while never allowing you to see what actually is. Emotional manipulation and gaslighting are powerful tools often used by men who exploit others. These tactics are meant to make you question your own perception of reality, to make you doubt your feelings, and to manipulate you into staying in an unhealthy situation. It starts small. They may dismiss your feelings, belittle your concerns, or tell you that you're overreacting. Gradually, these actions wear you down, making you feel like you're the one at fault. Gaslighting, in particular, is a form of psychological manipulation where the manipulator causes you to doubt your memories, your thoughts, or even your sanity. He may deny things he said or did, making you question your own version of events. Over time, this constant undermining can erode your confidence and self-esteem. You begin to feel confused, unsure, and this kind of manipulation often comes with a sense of powerlessness. The more he denies your reality, the more you begin to believe him. You start to wonder if you're imagining things, if your feelings are justified, or if you're just being too sensitive. The result is a cycle of doubt that keeps you trapped in a relationship where you're constantly questioning yourself. But the truth is, your feelings are valid. What you experience matters. No one has the right to make you feel small or insignificant. Emotional manipulation works because it preys on your vulnerabilities. It exploits your desire for love, attention, and validation. A man who uses you will know how to say just the right things to make you feel like you need him, that you can't function without him. He may make you feel guilty for expressing your needs, making you think that you're being unreasonable for wanting a relationship that is fair and balanced, but it's not unreasonable, it's necessary. Over time, this manipulation can have devastating effects. It makes you doubt your worth, your judgment, and your own perception of reality. It's a form of control that keeps you in the relationship even when you know deep down that it's not healthy. But breaking free from this cycle requires strength and self-awareness. Recognizing that you're being manipulated is the first step toward reclaiming your power. If you find yourself constantly questioning your own thoughts and feelings, it's time to step back and reassess. Emotional manipulation is not love. Love is about support, validation, and respect. If you're being made to feel like you're the problem, then it's time to take a hard look at the person who's making you feel that way. Don't let anyone dictate your reality. Your truth matters. Another form of manipulation that occurs when a man uses you is financial or material exploitation. This can take many forms. He might constantly ask for money, expect you to pay for everything, or use you for resources while giving nothing in return. At first, it might seem harmless, but over time, this pattern becomes one of exploitation. Financial exploitation often begins subtly. He may ask for small favors at first, loaning him a bit of money for an emergency or helping him with a bill. These requests are framed in a way that makes you feel obligated to help. After all, he's your partner and you want to be there for him. But as time goes on, these requests become more frequent and more demanding. You find yourself carrying the financial burden while he contributes nothing. You are not responsible for his feelings or his well. This dynamic can be incredibly draining. You may feel like you're being generous, but in reality, you're being taken advantage of. Financial dependence can also give him a sense of control over you, making you feel obligated to continue giving because he's in need. But the reality is that a healthy relationship isn't about one person using the other for financial gain. Relationships should be partnerships where both people contribute in different ways. Material exploitation can also take on different forms. He may take advantage of your resources, your time, your energy, your home, without ever offering anything in return. You might feel like a source of convenience for him, but never truly a partner. This imbalance can start to take a toll on your emotional and mental health. Over time, you may find yourself drained, not just financially, but emotionally. You might begin to feel resentful, but at the same time, you may convince yourself that he's doing his best, that he just needs a little help. This is how financial and material exploitation keeps you hooked. It makes you feel responsible for his well-being, even when it's clear that you're being taken advantage of. The source of this culpable emotion, as I explained this weekend, is when you do what is expected of you. It's important to recognize that you are not an ATM, a caregiver, or a source of endless support. You deserve to be in a relationship where both people contribute equally, where both are willing to make sacrifices for the good of the partnership. If he's using you for your resources, it's time to reevaluate the relationship. You are worthy of someone who sees you as an equal, not as a means to an end. Take the time to fill your calendar with things that bring you joy. It's worth experiencing it before you decide on prioritizing it. A key aspect of any relationship is emotional reciprocity. The understanding that both people share, give, and receive emotional support. When a man uses you, there's a profound lack of this reciprocity. You may notice that you're the one always offering support, listening to his problems, and providing comfort. But when you need someone to lean on, he's nowhere to be found. This imbalance in emotional support can be incredibly disheartening. You might feel like a caretaker rather than a partner. Your emotions and needs are ignored while his are always front and center. This one-sided emotional dynamic can lead to feelings of loneliness and isolation, even when you're in a relationship. It's a cruel reality where you're left pouring your heart out but never receiving the same level of care in return. Over time, you may begin to wonder why your emotional needs aren't being met. You may question why he doesn't seem to care about your struggles, or why he doesn't make the effort to comfort you when you're upset. But the truth is, he may not be capable of emotional reciprocity because he's too focused on his own needs and desires. You're not a priority to him. A healthy relationship is one where both people are willing to give and take emotionally. When this balance is off, it can cause significant emotional strain. You might feel like you're giving more than you can, but still, he takes. You may try to hide your own emotions to avoid burdening him, but this only leads to deeper feelings of neglect. Emotional reciprocity is not a luxury, it's a necessity in any relationship. If you're not receiving the same level of care and understanding that you're giving, it's time to step back and reassess. Your feelings and needs matter, and if he's not willing to acknowledge that, then you deserve better. Love is about mutual care, support, and understanding, not about one person doing all the emotional labor. Ultimately, you should never feel like you're in a relationship where you are constantly giving but never receiving. You deserve someone who is willing to meet you halfway, someone who values your emotional well-being as much as his own. If this balance is missing, then it's time to let go. You're worth more than being someone's emotional crutch. When a man uses you, one of the most dangerous aspects of the relationship is the control and power dynamic. He may not overtly demand control, but subtly, over time, he begins to assert his power. This can be through manipulation, guilt-tripping, or even outright coercion. This power dynamic can take many forms. He might try to isolate you from friends and family, making you feel like you can only rely on him. He might manipulate your emotions to keep you dependent on him. He may dismiss your opinions, desires, or dreams, undermining your sense of self-worth. Slowly, you begin to realize that your decisions and actions are influenced by his desires more than your own. This dynamic is incredibly toxic. When one person holds all the power, it creates an unhealthy imbalance in the relationship. You start to lose your sense of autonomy. You begin to feel like you can't make decisions without his approval, that your happiness is dependent on his actions or words. At first, the power dynamic may seem innocent, just a small difference in the way you approach the relationship. But over time, this subtle shift can lead to a complete loss of self. When he uses you for his own gain, he diminishes your worth. You begin to question your own decisions, your own desires, and ultimately, your own identity. It's important to recognize when this dynamic is at play and to fight back. You are not someone's possession. You are a person with your own thoughts, feelings, and autonomy. A healthy relationship is one where both parties are equals, where power is shared, and where both individuals are free to make decisions for themselves. If you feel like you're constantly being controlled or manipulated, it's time to step away. The longer you stay in a relationship where you're being used, the harder it will be to reclaim your sense of self. You deserve to be in a relationship where you are respected, valued, and treated as an equal. Don't let anyone diminish your worth or make you feel powerless. Finally, when a man uses you, the emotional burnout is real. All the giving, the hoping, the disappointment, the manipulation, it wears you down. Over time, you begin to feel exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. You might feel like you've given everything you have, only to be left feeling empty and unappreciated. Emotional burnout comes from a lack of balance. When you give more than you receive, when you try to meet someone else's needs without your own being acknowledged, you burn out. You may feel numb, disconnected, or resentful. You may even question if love is worth all the pain you're enduring. The key to overcoming emotional burnout is understanding that you don't have to keep giving. You have the right to protect your heart, to set boundaries, and to take care of yourself. Love should never leave you feeling drained. If you're emotionally exhausted from giving everything to someone who doesn't value you, it's time to step back and focus on yourself. It's easy to lose yourself in a relationship where you feel like you're constantly giving but not receiving. But you must remember that your energy, your emotions, and your heart are precious. You cannot pour from an empty cup. The best way to recover from emotional burnout is to prioritize your own needs. Take time for yourself, rebuild your confidence, and surround yourself with people who genuinely care about you. Emotional burnout is a sign that something is wrong. It's a clear indication that the balance in your relationship is skewed. If you're exhausted, it might be time to let go. You deserve a relationship where you feel rejuvenated, supported, and loved. Never allow yourself to be in a situation where you're constantly drained for the sake of someone who doesn't appreciate you. Your well-being matters. One of the most insidious effects of being used in a relationship is the slow erosion of your self-worth. In a healthy partnership, both people lift each other up, encouraging each other to be the best versions of themselves. But when you are being used, you begin to feel smaller, less important, and more insignificant with each passing day. You give so much, hoping that it will be reciprocated, but the reality is that you are constantly being undervalued. At first, you might not even notice the subtle damage, but over time, you start to feel like you are only valuable based on what you can do for him. You might begin to internalize the idea that you don't matter unless you're being useful to him. Maybe you start doubting your own worth, telling yourself that you need to work harder, give more, and be more to gain his attention and affection. But here's the truth. Your worth is not determined by what you can do for someone else. Your value comes from who you are, from your uniqueness, your character, and your ability to love and care for others, including yourself. As you give more of yourself, your self-esteem begins to take a hit. You start to feel like you're not good enough on your own, as though your love and efforts are always falling short. This can lead to a sense of helplessness, of never being able to meet the demands of the relationship. You start doubting yourself, questioning your abilities, and wondering if you're simply not enough. This self-doubt is often a result of the manipulation and exploitation you're enduring, and it's a dangerous cycle that can be hard to break. Being used by someone you care about can also have long-term psychological consequences. When you're constantly giving and being taken for granted, you can start to feel unworthy of love. You might struggle to recognize your value, especially if you've been led to believe that your worth is tied to how much you can do for him or how much he needs you. This emotional toll can affect every aspect of your life, including your other relationships and your overall mental health. What you need to understand is that your self-worth is intrinsic. No one, especially not someone who uses you, has the power to take that away. You deserve a relationship where you are valued for who you are, not for what you can give. If a relationship is causing you to feel less than, to feel diminished, it's a clear sign that it's not healthy. You have the right to demand respect and to be treated with kindness and appreciation. It's crucial to take the time to rebuild your self-worth after such a relationship. It's not easy, but recognizing your own value is one of the most important steps you can take. Surround yourself with people who remind you of your strength and beauty, and give yourself the permission to love and care for yourself in the same way you've done for others. Know that you are deserving of a relationship where you are uplifted, not one that drags you down. Another painful aspect of being used in a relationship is the constant cycle of hope and disappointment. A man who uses you will often create a dynamic where he gives just enough to keep you hopeful, only to pull back when you need him the most. He may show you affection or say the things you long to hear, only to withdraw or act indifferently when you expect follow through. This cycle keeps you hanging on, waiting for the next promise, the next gesture, the next sign that things might change. This cycle is emotionally exhausting because it keeps you in a perpetual state of waiting. You hold on to the hope that he will change, that things will improve, that he will give you the love and commitment you crave. But each time you feel like you're getting closer to the fulfillment of that hope, something happens to pull you back down, whether it's a lack of follow through, inconsistency, or his continued selfishness. At first, the hope feels like a beacon of light. You believe in his potential, in the idea that love can change him or bring out the best in him. You convince yourself that things will be different this time, that maybe if you just love him harder or support him more, he will finally come around. But this belief is often rooted in wishful thinking. Rather, the cycle continues because he's not changing. He's using your hope as a way to keep you attached, to keep you invested while he reaps the benefits. The disappointment comes when the hope doesn't lead to anything substantial. You might find yourself repeating the same patterns over and over, always hoping that this time things will be different, only to face the same disappointment. This emotional roller coaster is incredibly draining. It leaves you feeling emotionally confused, like you're constantly chasing something that isn't real. Breaking free from this cycle requires self-awareness and a willingness to let go of false hope. It's important to recognize that hope alone is not enough to sustain a relationship. Hope must be backed by action, by a commitment to growth, to change, and to mutual respect. If you're constantly giving and hoping without receiving anything of substance in return, it's time to face the truth. Your hope is being used against you. Leaving the cycle of hope and disappointment is difficult, but it's necessary. Recognize the pattern and understand that your emotional health and your happiness should never depend on someone else's willingness to change. You deserve a relationship where your needs are met, where your hopes are fulfilled, and where your love is respected. Don't waste another moment waiting for something that isn't coming. Second, we've all been there, where we're living not just life, but passion. If you choose well, set yourself free from the cycle and move towards a future where you are treated with the care and love you deserve. The final and perhaps the most difficult step in this journey is finding the courage to walk away. When you've been used, it's easy to feel like you're stuck. You might feel like you don't have the strength to leave or that you can't live without him. Maybe you feel like you've invested too much to let go now. But here's the truth. Walking away from a relationship where you're being used is an act of self-love and self-preservation. Leaving isn't about giving up. It's about taking control of your life. It's about choosing yourself over the toxic cycle that has been wearing you down. It's about reclaiming your power and saying, I am worthy of more than this. The courage to walk away comes from recognizing that your happiness and your well-being are worth more than staying in a relationship that drains you. Walking away isn't easy. It can be messy. There might be guilt, sadness, and fear. And you may question your decision, but deep down, you'll know it's the right thing to do. You deserve to be in a relationship where you feel respected, loved, and valued, where your contributions are met with reciprocity, not exploitation. Staying in a relationship where you're being used only delays your healing and keeps you from the life you deserve. So, finding the courage to leave means acknowledging that you are not defined by the relationship. Your identity, your worth, and your future are yours to shape, and staying in a toxic situation only hinders your growth. You have the power to move forward, to find peace, and to find a love that nourishes you rather than drains you.